The night was quiet, but the forest was not at peace. Cold wind moved through the tall trees, and the ground carried the scent of hunger and unrest. Far in the shadows, glowing eyes watched the world. They belonged to wolves, strong and sharp, yet their hearts were restless. For many seasons, their pack had no true leader. Once, long ago, they had followed alphas with pride. Their leaders were fierce hunters, protectors of the young and bringers of food. But those days had ended. Every wolf who rose to claim the place of alpha was soon rejected. Some were too weak to fight. Others were cruel and selfish, caring only for themselves. And some were clever but lacked courage when danger came close. One by one, they were cast down, their howls swallowed by the forest. Without a leader, the wolves became divided. They argued. They fought among themselves. Brothers snapped at brothers. Sisters turned their teeth on sisters. The old wolves shook their heads, remembering the unity of the past, while the young wolves grew wild, hunting alone and ignoring the pack's call. Food grew harder to find. Winter came colder and sharper than before. With no alpha to guide them, the hunts failed. Many nights, their bellies remained empty. The air was filled with anger, fear, and the bitter scent of despair. But wolves are not like other beasts. They are bound to the pack, tied to one another by old laws written in blood and instinct. They needed a leader. Without one, they were only shadows, doomed to fade into the snow. On one such night, under the rise of a red moon, the wolves gathered. Their howls shook the sky, echoing across the forest. It was not a song of joy or pride. It was a song of longing, a cry for something missing, a plea for strength to return to them. From the youngest cub to the oldest gray wolf, all felt the same wound inside. No wolf could lead them. No wolf could carry the burden. They searched and tested and fought, but none were chosen. Then, when the last howl faded, the forest answered. It was not a wolf's voice. It was something different. A cry, weak, human, and alone. The wolves turned their heads. Ears twitched. Tails stiffened. The sound came from beyond the dark river, where the trees grew thick and the earth was covered in thorn. No wolf lived there. No prey dared to linger. It was a place of silence, a place they avoided. Yet now the silence was broken. The wolves exchanged looks. The eldest wolf, his muzzle white with age, growled low. "It is no beast of fur or claw," his growl seemed to say. "It is not prey. It is something else." The younger wolves licked their lips. "Easy meat," their hungry eyes whispered. "A lost creature. Small. Weak. We can end its cry." But some of the pack hesitated. The sound was strange. It was not only fear. There was strength hidden in it, like a spark hidden in ash. It called to something deep inside them, something older than memory. The pack moved together, silent shadows slipping through the forest. Paws pressed soft against the snow. Breath rose white in the cold night air. The cry came again, sharper this time, and the wolves quickened their pace. At last they reached a clearing. There, under the burning red moon, stood a human child. The child was small, wrapped in torn clothes that hung like rags. Skin was pale from the cold, lips trembling, but the eyes did not look away. Wide, yes, but steady. Afraid, yes, but unbroken. The wolves fanned out, forming a circle. Their teeth glinted in the moonlight. Low growls rumbled in their chests. One step closer, and they could tear the child apart. But the child did not run. The child stood still, back straight, fists tight. Though the body shivered, though the breath came in quick gasps, the child's gaze held firm. Eyes met the eyes of wolves. No scream escaped. No collapse came. For the first time in many seasons, the wolves paused. A challenge lived in that look. Not the kind of challenge from a rival wolf. filled with pride and hunger for power. This was different, quiet, simple, but strong. The pack growled louder, testing the courage of the child. A young wolf lunged forward, snapping its teeth just inches from the child's face. Any normal human would have fallen, cried, begged for life, but the child only flinched and lifted a hand, as if ready to strike back with nothing but skin and bone. The young wolf froze. Its ears lowered. It backed away. The pack shifted uneasily. Something was wrong. Something was strange. Here was no leader. Here was no wolf. And yet, under the red moon, a thought moved like fire among them. Could strength live in something that was not wolf at all? The night grew silent again, save for the heavy breaths of wolves and the small, steady heartbeat of a child. The pack had no leader, but perhaps the forest had sent them an answer. The red moon sank lower, and the forest grew colder, but the wolves did not leave the clearing. Their circle held, their eyes fixed on the small figure before them. The human child did not move. The body was weak, trembling from cold and hunger, yet the spirit inside it stood firm. The eldest wolf stepped closer. His fur was gray with age, his scars deep from many battles. His eyes burned like twin coals as he studied the strange creature. It was small, fragile, soft-skinned, and helpless against claws and teeth. By all the laws of the wild, this child was prey, and yet the child's stare was not prey. The wolf tilted his head. He had seen wolves break under his gaze. He had seen challengers bow before his shadow. But this human did not bow. It did not run. The child's lips trembled, but no cry left its throat. A younger wolf grew impatient. Hunger gnawed at his belly, and his teeth longed for blood. With a snarl, he leaped forward again, jaws snapping close to the child's face. The sound cracked like thunder in the clearing. The child flinched, but did not fall. Instead, the child lifted its hand, a small hand, shaking but firm, and struck the air before the wolf. No true blow, no real harm, but the intent was clear. The child would not accept death without a fight. The younger wolf stopped short, shock flashing in his golden eyes. He expected screams. He expected tears. He did not expect defiance. The pack shifted uneasily. They sniffed the air, searching for weakness. All they smelled was fear, and something else, something hidden beneath the fear. Resolve. The eldest wolf gave a low growl. He did not command with words, but his meaning was clear. Do not kill yet. Watch. Test. So they watched. The child turned slowly, looking at each wolf in the circle. The eyes were wide, yes, but not empty. They carried a spark, small but steady, like a flame fighting the wind. One by one, the wolves lowered their gaze, confused. The night stretched on. The wolves waited for the child to collapse. The cold bit at its skin. Hunger twisted its stomach. Exhaustion bent its legs. Still the child remained standing. At last, the eldest wolf sat down. His tail curled around his paws, and his eyes narrowed. He had made a decision. This human was not prey. Prey runs. Prey hides. Prey dies without a sound. This one stood. This one fought. But if the child was not prey, then what was it? The pack moved back, leaving a gap in their circle. The message was clear. Live or die. The child must walk. The child took a step. Then another. Bare feet pressed into snow, burning with cold. The wolves followed in silence. Not as hunters, not yet as allies, but as judges. The forest grew darker as the child stumbled forward. Thorn and branch scratched at its skin. Every step was pain. But the child did not beg for mercy. Hours passed. The moon sank. Dawn painted the horizon in pale gray. The wolves walked still, shadows on every side. At last the child fell. Knees struck the frozen ground, and breath tore from its chest in ragged gasps. The wolves circled tighter, tails lashing. Hunger burned in their bellies. Here, now they could end it. Flesh and blood would fill them. But then from the ground the child lifted its head. Eyes met theirs once more. No words were spoken, but the meaning was clear. I will rise again. You will not see me broken. The wolves hesitated. Something old stirred in their hearts. This was not the courage of a rival wolf. It was something different, something rare. The courage of a creature that should have no courage at all. The eldest wolf gave a long, low howl. It echoed through the trees, a call not of hunger, but of judgment. The pack froze, ears lifted. The sound told them the truth. This was a trial. The child had been chosen. Chosen for what? They did not yet know. When the howl faded, the wolves did not strike. They stepped back. They waited. Slowly, with arms weak and legs shaking, the child pushed up from the snow. It stood once more, pale face shining with sweat and frost. The wolves watched in silence. For the first time, respect glimmered in their eyes. The forest had given them no leader for many seasons. Now it had given them something stranger, a human child who refused to bend. The pack turned as one and moved into the trees. Their paws were silent, their shapes melting into shadow. But they did not leave the child behind. Their circle remained, guiding its steps deeper into the forest. The trial had only begun. The wolves had rejected every leader before. But on this night, under the fading red moon, the forest itself had placed a new question before them. Could a human child walk the path of the pack? The wolves did not accept easily. A pack without a leader could not trust quickly, not even when the forest seemed to whisper its choice. The human child had stood in the snow and had not broken. That was enough to keep the pack from killing it. But it was not enough to make the pack follow. Wolves did not bow to pity. They bowed only to strength. So the trials began. The first trial was hunger. The pack hunted, as they always did. They chased deer through the woods, teeth snapping, paws beating against frozen earth. But when they killed and fed, they left nothing for the child. Only bones, stripped of meat, blood already frozen stiff. The child searched those bones, fingers trembling. A shard of marrow remained deep inside one cracked leg. With sharp rock and bleeding hands, the child dug it free. It ate what little it could, its lips stained red. The wolves watched. Prey would have starved. The weak would have begged. The child endured. The second trial was cold. Snow fell heavy that night, covering the forest in a white blanket. The wolves curled close together, their fur thick and warm. They did not invite the child near. Alone, the child shivered under the open sky, frost gathering on skin and hair. But instead of crying out, the child gathered broken branches. With shaking hands, it sparked stone against stone until smoke rose, then fire. Small at first, then larger, until the flames burned bright against the night. The wolves watched from their circle, eyes glowing. Fire was feared by beasts of the wild, yet the child sat beside it without fear. The pack whispered without words. Clever, yes, but cleverness was not enough. The third trial was fear. At dawn, the wolves led the child to a pit in the earth. The hole was dark, the bottom unseen. They pushed the child forward with snarls and snapping teeth. Down it fell, scraping skin against stone, landing hard on frozen soil. From the shadows came the hiss of a snake, long and thick, scales glinting in the faint light. Its body coiled, fangs sharp with venom. Any small creature would die in moments. The wolves leaned over the pit, eyes glowing, waiting to see if the child would scream. The child's chest rose fast, heart pounding. Fear poured through every bone. But instead of curling up, instead of begging for help, the child reached for a stone. It lifted the rock in both hands, small arms shaking, and struck as the snake lunged. The sound cracked through the pit. The The snake hissed in pain, striking again, but the child did not stop. Strike after strike. The stone fell until the serpent lay still. When the child climbed back out, bloody and pale, the wolves stepped back. Not prey at all. The fourth trial was a hunt. The pack chased a great boar through the forest, tusks sharp, hooves pounding the ground like thunder. It was stronger than 10 wolves, a beast that could tear open flesh with a single strike. The wolves ran in silence, but they did not tell the child how to hunt. This was a trial. The child ran too, legs burning, lungs on fire. Every root and stone cut at bare feet, but the child did not stop. When the boar turned, eyes wild, tusks ready, the wolves scattered. The child, breath ragged, lifted a rock and threw it with all its strength. The rock struck the boar's eye. It roared, turning its rage toward the small human. The wolves did not move. They waited. Would the child run? Would the child fall? The child stumbled, but instead of fleeing, it grabbed a broken branch and pointed it forward like a spear. The boar charged. The child did not close its eyes. At the last moment, the wolves struck from all sides, teeth sinking deep. They brought the beast down in a storm of fur and blood. The child fell back, gasping but alive. The wolves fed, and this time they left meat for the child. It ate beside them, its hands shaking, but its eyes still steady. The fifth and final trial was silence. For one night, the wolves left the child alone. No circle, no watchful eyes, only shadows and wind. In the forest, loneliness could kill as quick as hunger or cold. The child sat by a weak fire, staring into the flames. Every sound in the dark whispered of danger. Every rustle of branch spoke of death. Yet the child did not call out, did not beg, did not break. When dawn came, the wolves returned. The child still sat awake, tired but unyielding. The trials were complete. The wolves had tested hunger, cold, fear, blood, and silence. The child had endured them all, not with strength of body, not with claws or fangs, but with something the wolves had no word for. The pack gathered close, their eyes fixed on the human child. They had rejected every wolf who sought to lead them, but now a new thought stirred in their wild hearts. Perhaps a leader did not need to be born of the pack. Perhaps strength could be something different. The child stood, small and fragile in the morning light, and met their gaze without fear. And for the first time, the wolves lowered their heads. The forest was alive with sound. Branches groaned under the weight of snow, and crows cawed from the high trees. But beneath it all ran a different sound, the deep silence of wolves preparing for the hunt. This was no ordinary hunt. Hunger gnawed at every belly. The pack had gone too long with scraps and bones. Tonight, they needed more than a rabbit or deer. They needed a kill that would feed them all. And in the middle of the silent hunters stood the human child. Small, thin, fragile, yet no longer an outsider. The wolves had tested the child with hunger, cold, fear, and silence. The child had endured. But surviving trials was not the same as leading hunts. Tonight would decide if the child truly belonged. The eldest wolf lifted his muzzle to the air. His nose twitched. His ears turned. He caught the scent first, strong and heavy, a beast large enough to crush a wolf under its hooves. The great elk. The wolf's tail stiffened. Their eyes burned bright with hunger and excitement. This would not be easy prey. The elk was stronger than any single wolf. Its antlers were like spears, sharp and wide. Many wolves had died in hunts like this. The pack spread out, silent shadows under the trees. They move as one, each paw careful, each breath measured. Only the child did not know their rhythm. But the child watched and copied, crouching low, placing feet soft in the snow. The forest opened into a wide clearing. There, The elk stood proud, its antlers glittering with frost. Steam rose from its nostrils, and its dark eyes scanned the trees. The beast was not afraid. It had fought wolves before. The eldest wolf gave a low growl, a signal. The hunt began. Wolves burst in the shadows, their howls sharp and fierce. They circled the elk, snapping, darting, testing. The elk charged, hooves crushing the ground, antlers cutting the air. A young wolf cried out as a hoof struck, throwing aside. The child ran too, breath burning in the cold air. Legs stumbled but did not stop. The elk swung its head, antlers slicing close. The child dropped low, rolling in the snow, and came up with a rock in hand. The wolves struck again, leaping at the elk's flanks. But the beast twisted, throwing them off. Blood dripped from a torn ear, yet it still stood strong. The child shouted, a raw, wordless cry, and hurled the rock. It struck the elk's side, not deep, but enough to turn its head. Now the elk's rage locked onto the child. The wolves froze. This was the moment. If the child ran, it would die. If the child fell, it would prove weakness. But the child did not run. It lifted a broken branch, sharp at one end, holding it like a spear. The elk thundered forward, snow spraying under its hooves. The child stood its ground. At the last second, the wolves attacked together. They struck from both sides, fangs sinking deep into the elk's legs. Another leaped at its neck, jaws locking tight. The beast roared, tried to toss them away, but the pack held firm. The child screamed and drove the branch forward. The wood snapped against the elk's hide, but the force of the strike distracted it. The wolves lunged again, dragging the beast down into the snow. The clearing shook with struggle, with blood, with snarls and roars. Then, at last, silence. The elk lay still. The wolves stood panting, their fur matted red, their eyes gleaming with victory. And beside them stood the child, chest heaving, hands bloody, eyes burning with the same fire. The wolves gathered around the fallen beast. Tradition demanded the alpha eat first, but the pack had no alpha. They turned to the eldest wolf. His gaze slid past them all and rested on the child. Slowly he stepped back. The others followed. The child stood confused at first, then stepped forward. With shaking hands, it tore a piece of meat free. It ate, not quickly, not with greed, but with quiet resolve. Only then did the pack feed. Side by side, wolf and human, they ate as one. That night, the howls rose high, echoing through the forest. It was not the sound of a broken pack. It was the sound of unity, of strength shared. For the first time in many seasons, the wolves had hunted together. But more important, the child had hunted with them. The forest listened to their song, and even the stars above seemed to pause. Something new had been born in the wild that night, a bond not of blood, but of spirit. The wolves did not speak, but their eyes carried the truth. This child was no longer prey, no longer trial. This child was one of them. And somewhere deep inside, each wolf knew what they had refused to admit before. Perhaps this human was more than just part of the pack. Perhaps this human was meant to lead. The forest changed after the great hunt. For many nights, the wolves howled with pride. Their bellies were full, their strength had returned, and their spirits were lifted. They had hunted with the human child, and together they had brought down the great elk. For the first time in many seasons, the pack fell whole. But the forest has ears. The forest has eyes. And not every wolf belonged to this pack. Other packs lurked in the shadows. Packs that had mocked them for being leaderless. Packs that had watched from a distance as they starved. To those wolves, weakness was blood in the water. And now, when they heard the victorious howls, they grew restless. From the ridges, yellow eyes glowed in the dark. From the valleys, low growls rolled like thunder. The rival packs whispered among themselves. The broken pack hunt again. They howl as if led. But no wolf leads them. It is that a human runs at their side. A human? Then they are mad. Wolves do not follow prey. Mad, yes, but dangerous. We cannot allow it. And so jealousy grew into hunger, and hunger grew into a plan. The child did not know this. By day, the child walked with the wolves, learning their ways. It copied how they moved, low and silent, through the underbrush. It watched how they sniffed the wind, how they read the tracks in the snow. At night, the child huddled close to its small fire, while the wolves circled in the dark. But even then the child felt it, the weight of eyes watching from beyond the trees. Shadows that never came closer, but never left. The eldest wolf felt it too. His ears twitched at night. His hackles rose at strange scents on the wind. He did not sleep deeply, not anymore. He knew the forest was no longer theirs alone. The younger wolves whispered restlessly. They smelled danger. They wanted to strike first, to chase rivals from their borders. But without an alpha, they hesitated. Who would lead the fight? The child did not understand these whispers, but it understood silence. It understood the unease that crept through the pack like cold through fur. The attack came on a night when the moon was thin and the snow was deep. The child sat near its fire, feeding it small sticks, when the wind shifted. The smell hit first. Strange wolves, many of them, their scent sharp with hunger and rage. The pack lifted their heads. Low growls filled the air. Then, from the shadows, they came. Dozens of wolves, lean and scarred, their eyes glowing like fire. They fanned out across the clearing, tails high, teeth bare. At their front stood a rival alpha, a massive wolf with fur black as night and scars across his muzzle. The child froze. The rival alpha growled, his voice rumbling through the snow. His eyes never left the child. This is the one? This small thing? This human? The pack bristled, forming a wall around the child. But doubt flickered in their hearts. They had protected the child before, but now they faced more wolves than they could count. If they chose to defend, blood would cover the snow. The rival alpha circled, his eyes full of scorn. Wolves follow strength. Wolves follow claw and fang. And yet you follow prey. He snarled, his teeth flashing. You dishonor the old laws. You shame the forest. The pack growled back, but none lunged. The rival wolves laughed, sharp and cruel. The alpha's gaze hardened. Hand it over. Hand us the human. Let us tear it apart. Then perhaps we will let the rest of you live. The words cut deep. The pack trembled. This was a choice. Protect the child and die, or abandon it and survive. The child heard none of the words, but it saw the eyes. It saw how its pack wavered, how they shifted on their paws. Fear twisted its chest. Were they about to leave it? The silence broke when the youngest wolf of the pack stepped forward. His fur was still bright, his spirit hot with fire. He growled, loud and proud, standing between the child and the rivals. The rival alpha laughed. With a single snap of his jaws, he lunged. The young wolf yelped, thrown back, blood spraying the snow. The child screamed, not with fear, but with fury. It seized a burning branch from the fire, lifting it high. Flames roared at the end of the stick. The rival wolves froze, their eyes wide. Fire, the one thing even wolves feared. The child swung the branch, forcing them back. Small arms trembled, but the fire burned bright. The rival alpha snarled. See? Weakness hides behind flame. Without it, the prey is nothing. But the pack saw something different. They saw a child, small and fragile, standing over a fallen brother, holding fire not for escape, but for defense. They saw courage. The eldest wolf lifted his head. A growl rumbled in his chest. deep and strong. Then he howled. It was a long, echoing cry that rolled through the forest. Not a cry of fear, not a cry of defeat, a cry of war. The pack answered. The battle exploded. Wolves clashed in a storm of teeth and blood. The snow turned red under their paws. The rival wolves outnumbered them, but the pack fought with fury. They struck not as scattered beasts, but as one. Every time a rival lunged to the child, 3 wolves blocked the path. Every time the fire wavered, a howl rose to strengthen the child's spirit. The child fought too, swinging the burning branch until it broke, then grabbing a sharpened stick from the ground. When the rival alpha lunged for it, jaws wide, the child thrust the stick forward. The wood split, scraping his muzzle. Blood trickled down his scarred face. The rival alpha roared in rage, but in that roar, his pack faltered. For the first time, they doubted. For the first time, they saw a prey that did not break. The eldest wolf leapt, his teeth sinking deep into the rival alpha's throat. The 2 great wolves crashed into the snow, rolling, snapping, tearing. The fight was brutal, the outcome uncertain. The child screamed again, voice raw, and hurled itself forward. With bare hands, it grabbed another branch, striking the rival's muzzle. The distraction gave the eldest wolf his chance. His jaws crushed down, and the rival alpha fell silent. The rival pack froze. Their leader was dead. Blood steamed on the snow. The eldest wolf stood over body, his chest heaving, his eyes burning. Then he turned, not to his enemies, but to the child. The rivals lowered their heads. One by one, they backed away into the trees. Defeated, shamed, the clearing grew quiet again. The pack gathered around the child. Some were bleeding, some limping, but all still alive. The youngest wolf, though wounded, licked the child's hand. The eldest wolf looked at the child with something new in his eyes. Not only respect, not only trust, something greater. The pack had faced death. They had faced choice. And they had chosen to fight for the child. The child had not begged to be saved. It had fought beside them. Together they had survived. The wolves lifted their heads and howled, not in victory alone, but in declaration. This child was theirs. And woe to any who tried to take it from them. The snow still smelled of blood. It clung to the trees, to the frozen ground, to the fur of every wolf that had fought. The rival pack was gone, melted into the shadows, their alpha dead in the clearing. But victory did not feel clean. The wolves limped back toward the fire. Their bodies were torn by teeth and claw. Their breath came ragged, and their eyes burned with pain. The youngest wolf stumbled, a trail of red staining the white snow. The child dropped the broken stick it still held and ran to the fallen wolf. Small hands pressed against a wound, trembling but determined. There were no bandages, no tools, only rags from its own clothes. The child tore them into strips and pressed hard, stopping the bleeding as best as it could. The young wolf whimpered, but the child whispered low sounds, soft, steady sounds that had no meaning in wolf tongue, yet carried comfort. The pack watched in silence. They had seen wolves lick wounds. They had seen them die when the blood would not stop. But they had never seen this. Fragile hands working with care, refusing to let go. The eldest wolf stepped closer. His muzzle dripped with the blood of the rival alpha. He lowered his head, sniffing the child's scent, sweat, dirt, fear, and something more. Loyalty. The child lifted its eyes to him. For a long moment, wolf and human stared at one another. The pack held their breath. Then the eldest wolf did something no one expected. He bowed his head, not in defeat, not in weakness, in recognition. The next days were heavy with silence. The pack moved little, their wounds deep. They needed rest, but rest in the forest was never safe. Rivals could return. Hunger could return. Death could return. The child worked without stopping. It gathered water from frozen streams. It chewed herbs it found under roots, pressing them into cuts. It kept the fires burning when the wolves were too weak to hunt. And when food grew scarce, the child went alone. It had no claws, no fangs, only sharp sticks and stones. Yet it set traps, small ones for rabbits and birds. It dragged back what little it caught, dropping it before the wolves. The wolves ate first. The child always ate last. Days turned into nights, nights into days. Slowly, wounds closed. Slowly, the pack grew strong again. The youngest wolf, saved by the child's hands, limped but lived. He followed the child everywhere now, his golden eyes soft, his tail wagging like no wolf's tail should wag for prey. But not all was healed. Some wolves still doubted. They whispered in low growls when the child slept. They said, "We fight because of it. We bleed because of it. We are wolves. Wolves follow wolves, not prey. The forest will laugh at us. Other packs will come. We will die for this mistake." The eldest wolf silenced them with a glance. But in the silence, doubt remained. The child did not know these whispers, but it felt them. It saw how some wolves looked at it with distrust, their eyes sharp, their teeth bared a little too long. It knew it was not yet fully accepted. And then came the test that would burn away doubt forever. One night, under a sky black with storm clouds, the wind shifted again. The scent of danger rolled across the snow, stronger this time, sharper, mixed with a stink of death. The rivals had returned. Not only one pack, two. Dozens of wolves poured from the forest, lean and wild, their eyes blazing. At their head were new alphas, brothers of the slain black wolf, hungry for revenge. The pack rose at once, forming their circle around the child. Their growls rumbled through the storm. They were outnumbered 3-1. The rival alphas sneered. "Still you hide the human," one growled. "Still you shame yourselves," the other snarled. "This time none of you will live." The rivals lunged. The clearing erupted into chaos. Teeth tore flesh. Blood sprayed across the snow. Wolves clashed, snarling, howling, rolling in the storm's darkness. The child was forced back against a tree, clutching a burning branch from a fire. The youngest wolf, limping but fierce, stood at its side. Two rivals rushed them. The child swung the branch. Flames hissed in the storm wind. One rival flinched, but the other snapped the branch in half with its jaws. The child stumbled. The youngest wolf leapt, biting the rival's ear, dragging it down. The child grabbed a sharp stone and struck again and again, until the rival fell silent. But more came. The eldest wolf fought like a storm himself. His jaws tore, his body bled, his howl shook the forest. But even he was slowing. There were too many. The rivals pressed harder. They wanted the child. They wanted to break the bond that had shamed them. At last, one rival alpha broke through. He leapt high, teeth aimed at the child's throat. The child did not run. It lifted the broken branch, still glowing at the end, and thrust it forward. The fire struck the rival's eye. He roared in pain, twisting midair. And then the eldest wolf struck from the side, slamming him to the ground. Teeth closed, bones cracked, and the rival alpha's cry ended in silence. The second rival alpha froze. He saw his brother dead, saw the pack still standing, saw the child bleeding but unbroken, fire still burning in its hands. And he knew, his pack knew, they had not broken the child. They had not broken the wolves. They had only proven their strength. One by one, the rivals turned. Growls turned to whimpers. Their tails lowered. Then they fled into the storm, leaving bodies behind, leaving silence in their wake. The clearing was still again, save for the sound of heavy breaths and falling snow. The pack was broken, bloody, but alive. The child dropped to its knees, chest heaving, hands burned and red. The youngest wolf pressed against it, licking its wounds. The eldest wolf limped forward, his fur torn, his eyes bright. He looked at the child, looked long and deep. Then he lowered himself fully, pressing his head to the child's chest. The pack gasped. Wolves did not bow, not even to one another. But the eldest wolf had bowed, and one by one, the others followed, even those who doubted, even those who whispered. They lowered their heads to the child. The snow carried their silent vow. Not prey, not burden, not mistake. One of them, their leader, the child, did not understand the old laws of wolves. It did not know what bowing meant, but it felt it. It felt the weight of their loyalty pressing close, binding tighter than blood. The child raised its head, eyes blazing despite exhaustion. In its heart, a truth was born. Alone, it would have died. But with them, it would never be alone again. The wolves had bled for it. It had bled for them. This bond was not built on hunger or fear. It was built on loyalty. And no storm, no rival, no shadow in the forest could break it now. The storm had passed. The forest was quiet again, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Snow lay heavy on the branches, covering the blood, softening the scars of battle. Yet the silence was not peace. It was a silence that follows great change, the stillness before something new begins. The pack lay in the clearing, their bodies torn and weary, but their eyes awake and watching. They did not look to the sky. They did not look to the forest. They looked only to the child. The small figure stood with torn clothes, burned hands, and blood on its face. It was no warrior in armor, no beast with claws. It was still only a child, but there was fire in its eyes, a fire that no storm could put out. The eldest wolf, scarred and bleeding, bowed before the child again. The others had already followed. The snow carried the sound of their quiet growls, not of anger, but of respect. For the first time in many seasons, the pack had an alpha, and that alpha was not a wolf. The child did not understand at first. Its chest rose and fell, its arms shook, and its body screamed for rest. But it felt the weight of the wolf's eyes. It felt the circle close around it, not to trap, but to protect. Something stirred deep in the child's heart. It was not pride. It was not fear. It was something older, something nameless. A bond carved in blood and loyalty. The child lifted its head. It made no speech, no words, only a sound, a long, raw cry that rose into the night sky. It was broken, human, imperfect, but the wolves heard more than sound. They heard truth, and they answered. Howls rose together, fierce and endless, rolling to the forest like thunder. The stars seemed to tremble at the noise. The trees bent as if listening. The rivals, far away in their shame, shivered at the sound. It was not just wolves howling. It was wolves and human, one voice made of many, calling the night their own. When the howls faded, silence returned, softer now. The pack lay close around the fire, licking wounds, sharing warmth. The child sat at the center, no longer outside the circle. The youngest wolf placed its head in the child's lap, golden eyes bright with trust. The child stroked its fur slowly, fingers trembling but gentle. The eldest wolf watched. His old eyes had seen many leaders rise and fall, had seen alphas win battles but lose their pack. But never had he seen this, a leader born from another world, yet bound tighter than any wolf. He closed his eyes. At last he could rest. The pack would survive. Days passed. The wounds healed. Hunger returned, but the hunt was different now. The wolves did not wait for command. They looked to the child to see where it would point, how it would move. And the child learned quickly. It watched how they spread through the trees. It copied their signals, their silence, their rhythm. Soon, the hunts were faster, sharper. The pack moved with strength it had not known even in the days of its greatest alphas. The child was not the strongest, but it was the most unexpected. It thought differently. It used fire. It used traps. It used stones. Where a wolf saw only one path, the child saw three. Together, they grew stronger. But strength brought whispers. Other packs heard the howls that shook the trees. They smelled the kills. They saw shadows that did not match the old ways. A child hunting with wolves? A child leading wolves? It was madness. It was blasphemy. Some were afraid. Some were curious. And some were hungry. The day came when strangers appeared at the edge of the forest. Not wolves this time. Not beasts. Humans. Hunters with bows and spears. Men with fire in their hands and iron in their eyes. They moved silently, watching from the shadows, their eyes fixed on a strange pack. The wolves tensed. The child smelled them first, the scent of smoke, leather, and fear. It froze, heart-pounding. Memories flickered. A village, faces angry, voices shouting. Cold hands pushing it away, leaving it to die in the forest. The wolves growled low, sensing danger. They circled the child, ready to fight, ready to bleed again. But the humans did not attack. Not yet. They only watched. Then they vanished into the trees. The pack did not rest that night. The child dreamed. In the dream, the wolves spoke, not with words, but with eyes. They showed the child paths of blood and paths of peace. They showed battles yet to come. They showed a choice, to remain hidden or to stand as something new, something the forest had never known. The child woke with tears frozen on its cheeks. It did not know what choice it would make, but it knew one truth: the wolves would follow. Seasons shifted. Snow melted. Rivers swelled. The forest turned green again. The pack thrived. Pups were born, small and blind, their fur soft as smoke. The child held them in its arms, careful, gentle, whispering the same sounds it had once used to comfort the wounded. The pups nuzzled against it, as if they knew no difference between human and wolf. The eldest wolf watched the scene with a quiet heart. He was old, his strength fading. He had led long enough to know his time was ending. One night, under a sky full of stars, he rose and walked away from the fire. He climbed a hill, slow but steady, and lay down at the top. The child followed, silent, and sat beside him. The eldest wolf lifted his head one last time and pressed it against the child's hand. His breath slowed, his eyes dimmed, and then he was gone. The child sat still, tears sliding down its face, while the pack gathered below and raised their howls. A farewell, a passing, a new beginning. From that night, there was no question. The child was not only part of the pack. The child was the alpha, not by strength of claw, but by strength of spirit, not by fear, but by loyalty, not by age, but by fire. The wolves followed. They did not hesitate. They did not doubt. When the child walked, they walked. When the child howled, they howled. When the child fought, they fought. The forest no longer whispered of a broken pack. It spoke of something greater. Years later, hunters would still tell the story. They spoke of a child who had been left in the snow to die, only to rise again as a leader of wolves. They told of eyes that shone with fire, of howls that shook the night, of hunts that ended with no prey escaping. Some said the child was blessed by the spirits of the wild. Others said it was cursed. But all agreed on one thing. The wolves had found their alpha, and the forest would never be the same. The moon rose high above the trees, silver and cold. The pack moved through the shadows, swift and silent, the child at their front. Together, they were more than wolves. Together, they were more than human. Together, they were legend.